Alrighty, Code Bacon welcomes you. Hello, hello. Let's get going. Today we're going to talk about how to create a chatbot using AI. And we're going to be using Gemini, Google's AI, because ChatGPT and Grok are greedy pieces of, they don't want to let us use their AI for free anymore. They used to, I think, but not anymore. Google, they basically own us all anyways, so who cares? They let us use their AI for free. That's what we're going to do. So if you learn this and you understand how this works, doing it in Grok and ChatGPT are similar. It's a similar concept. All right, so the first thing you want to do if you're following along, create a folder. That's where we're going to put all of our stuff. This is where the project's going to go, and we're going to open that folder in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so bring that over here. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, and another thing we're going to do is create a file in this folder. We'll call it chatbot Gemini.py. Okay. Next thing we want to do is create a virtual environment. If you're not sure how to do that, I have another video. You can just search for it, Code Bacon Python virtual environments. We talk about what they are, but this is basically where we're going to install the modules and packages and things that we need to get this working. So to do that, I'm going to open up my terminal here. So terminal, new terminal. Okay. So notice how it opens it in the exact same place that my stuff is, right? You want to make sure that your terminal or your command prompt or whatever you're doing, just make sure that it's opened in the folder that you're doing the project in. So to create that virtual environment, it's py-m virtual VM or venv. And this is just on a Mac, you may have to type Python 3. On some PCs, you may have to type Python 3 as well, or Python. For me, I can just type py. So we just want to do the Python command -m. That's saying we're using a module. The module we're using is venv, whatever you want to say there. And this is the folder that the virtual environment's going to go into. So I'll hit enter. You can see that it creates that folder for me. Got to wait for a couple seconds here. Okay, then we're going to activate it. And on a PC, it's the name of the folder, scripts activate. On Mac, it's going to be a little bit different. You can Google it or watch that video that I created. But the main thing is we just want to make sure this virtual environment here is activated. And on command prompt here on Windows, you know that it is because you'll see that inside of parentheses here. Now that it's activated, oh, and by the way, if you want to deactivate it, you just type that in, deactivate. Okay, and I'm going to press the arrow keys to kind of cycle through the different commands that I've done, and we got it back activated. So the first thing here, now that we have our virtual environment created and activated, we can start installing these different things that we need. And the first module we need is called Google Generative AI. Generative AI. Make sure I can spell here. And we'll hit enter. And this is going to go and install all the things that we need to be able to communicate with Google's AI. This takes a little bit, so the next thing we want to do is go get what's called an API key. This is basically the way that you prove to Google's AI that, hey, I'm validated, let me make requests to the AI. So you want to go to aistudio.google.com, make sure you're logged in with your Google account or whatever account you want to use here, and we're going to do get API key. And then we're going to create one. It'll take a few seconds. While this is generating, just so you know what's happening, if you go to console.cloud.google.com, it sets up projects, and projects are usually where you do APIs and things like that. And this is actually creating a project on here for your AI API key, just as a heads up, just so you're aware of that. All right, so there is my API key. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to just paste it here. Now, you got to be careful with these. This isn't something you just want to give to the world like I am doing right now. I will be deactivating this API key when we're done here just because I don't want other people using it. But if you were doing this for real, this is something you would keep secret. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay. But anyways, we can see that that API key has been created. It's free. Yay, we love free. And the project name is Gemini API. So if I come over here and I, create or select a project, there's the project that it created for me automatically. Okay. Alrighty, sweet. So I now have something sensitive, right? Some information I don't want to be public. And you don't ever want to hard code this kind of stuff in your code. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to right click or create a new file, and we're going to call it .env. This is where you put your super secret stuff, keep it secret, keep it safe type stuff. So I'm going to grab this key, and what you put in these .env files is basically like key value pairs, which are basically something equal to something. And what this does is, say I were to push this up to GitHub, or say I were to put this on a web host or something, this env file should never go up there. It shouldn't be uploaded anywhere public, because this is where I put my sensitive stuff like API keys, database passwords, whatever I'm doing. So this is just a separate place to put them. So if I ever put this like program online, or if I ever put this app online, the .env file would not go with it. It would stay on my computer. And then I would go into the host where I'm actually hosting my stuff. And then inside of that host, there would be a place where I could set up these environment variables. And then I would go in there and create a Gemini API key, and I would set it equal to that. And then on my host, that's like a secret area, a secure area where no one has access to except for the people that are running that application. So this is a way to keep your sensitive information separate. And then when you push to GitHub or you upload this thing to a web host or something, then you would go into your web host and set this stuff up so your online application would have access to it. Okay. Anyways, so there we go. There's my API key, and it's called Gemini API key. All right. Now, to use these .env files, I have to install another package. So I have to do a pip install, and it's called Python .env. .env is a package that's used all over the place. I've seen it in Java. I've seen it in Python, obviously. I've seen it in JavaScript. It's just what it's going to allow us to use these .env files and be able to pull the values from them. All right, cool. So first thing we want to do now is we're going to import the generative AI that I installed. And we're going to import it as Gen AI. And we're doing as here just so we don't have to type this out all the time when we start accessing the things that are inside of this module. Next thing we need is OS. That's a built-in module from Python. We'll call it out when we use it. And then from .env that we just installed, we're going to import a function called load.env. And this is going to allow us to access the information on that .env file. Okay. All right, first thing we want to do is run load.env. That's going to allow us to now have access to the things that's inside of .env. That's that method that we just brought in. Okay, next thing we want to do is set up API key. This is just a variable that I'm creating. And I'm going to set it equal to OS. This is why we imported OS, because OS has this variable or this function called getEnv, which allows us to go into that env folder and pull out whatever we're looking for. So just think of this, basically this loads the env file here, and then OS allows us to get the environment variable called Gemini API key, which is Gemini API key. So those need to match up. So for all intents and purposes here, I now have a variable called API key that is equal to whatever Gemini API key is, which is this API key. Cool. All right, so now I can say Gen AI dot configure, and I'm going to pass in the API key that is stored in API key. So this is calling a configure method that exists inside of Google's Gemini AI, Gen AI, and I'm passing it a key value pair, basically a variable that's equal to something. I'm passing it API key, which is going to be equal to the API key that we pulled from the environment variable, the .env file. Okay, this is how we're telling Google's AI that, hey, we're validated, we're verified. Let us do what we want to do. This is how we pass in the hopefully right valid API key that we just created. Now, one thing we can do here is I can set up a variable called models and Gen AI list models. And what this is going to do is, because things are always changing, Google may decide, hey, you can use this model for free. You can't use this model for free. This list models function inside of Gen AI right here, this inside of the Gemini here, this lists and gives us a list of all the models that we can actually use with our free API key. So now what I can do is I can loop through it. And this will print out for me all the models that I can use with our free API key. So this gives us a list of all the models, and then we just loop through them. If you've never seen a loop in Python, it's basically sets up what's this is called like a temporary variable, and we go through models. Gen AI list models is going to give us just that, a list of all the models, a group of all the models that we can use with our API key. And so this is like a temporary variable. The first time this runs, model is going to be equal to the first model that list models gave us. The second time it runs, model is going to be equal to the second thing that list models gave us. And then model.name is just that. It's giving us this property name. Each model that we loop through has a property called name, and it's just that. It's just the name of the model. So we can run this, and this will tell us a bunch of things. It'll tell us, is our API key working? If it is, then we won't get any models here. And then if we do get a bunch of models, then we'll know which models we can use with our API key. So let's run this and see what happens. Cool. All right, so we got some stuff back. So that tells us our API key worked. It told us that .env worked, that it loaded it correctly, and that when we did os.getEnv, that it pulled the Gemini key correctly. And when we configured Gen AI, our API key was valid. If it wasn't valid, we wouldn't have got anything back here. We would have got like an API key error. So now these are all the models that our free API key lets us use. So I want something 2.0. We'll probably just do the Flash one here. We'll just do this one. All right, so let's set that up. So now that we know that's working, I can just comment this out, Control/ with it's the button that has the question mark on it. That's a quick way to just comment things out. So I'm going to say model is equal to Gen AI dot generative model, spelling's good, and we'll just use Gemini 2.0 Flash. Now, what the difference is of all these models, I have no idea. You'd have to go into the documentation, and all I know is that this gave us a list of all the models that our free API key will work with. Okay, so so I'm saying, man, I got to check my spelling. Generative model. All right. So this is us just telling Google Gemini what model we're going to be using. Just like we say Gen AI configure and we pass in the API key, we're saying Gen AI generative model. We're telling it what model we want to use, and it's going to return that model inside of the model variable here. Okay, now I'm going to set up a while true loop. Basically, this is going to run until we tell the loop to stop or we tell it to break. All right, so in this loop, we're basically going to just ask the user for the question that it wants to ask the AI. We'll pass that question to the AI, and then we'll receive what the AI responds with, and then we'll print that out. So first thing we want is we're going to use the input method from Python, which is just that. It's going to ask the user for some input, and whatever they type in will be stored inside of user input. And this will be basically our question to the API. We can see if user input, we're going to lowercase that. If what they typed is in this list, exit or quit, we're going to print, the chatbot's going to say bye-bye, and then we'll break. So this is how we stop the loop. If what the user typed in after we lowercase it, in other words, we take the whole thing that they typed in and we lowercase every character, if that is in this list, exit or quit. So in other words, if what they typed in after we lowercase it, if it's in this list, exit or quit. In other words, if they type in exit or quit, we're going to print, see you later, bye-bye. And then we're going to break the loop and then the program will stop running. Okay, if they don't type in exit or quit, we need to pass it off to the API. So we're going to say model.generate content user input. So in other words, we're going to take our model here, which is the Gemini 2.0 Flash, and in that model, there's a function called generate content. So this is basically the function that asks the AI the question. And so what is the question? Well, we pass in the question. The question is stored in user input. So this right here is where the awesome magic happens. Generate content is the method that's used to speak with the AI using the model that we defined up here, Gemini 2.0 Flash. All right, so we pass the question to the AI. It's going to respond with something, and what it responds with will be stored inside of response. So now all we got to do is just print that out. Say the chatbot. Now there is a property called text that comes back inside of response, and that is the answer from the AI. And this, why is it that way? Well, that's just what Google Gemini decided to do. If we were messing around with ChatGPT, or if we were messing around with Grok or something like that, this would be different. The concepts would be similar, but the way you pass a question to the AI and the way you get the response and all that's going to be different. But with Google AI, with Gemini, this is how you do it. Okay, that should be it. So we'll run it. If there's any issues, if there's any errors, we'll mess with them. But this should give us a working chatbot here. So let's take a look. Let's run it. Oh, right. This is an if statement. If statements in Python, you need a colon there at the end. All right, let's try it again. Oh, and if you don't have this play button here, it's probably because you need an extension. You can come over here. The extension that I'm not 100% sure, but I think the extension that does it is this Python extension from Microsoft. And I got Python debugger. But if that doesn't work either, you can always open this up. Like I could come in here and just, open in terminal and run it from here, py, and then just run the Python file. That should work as well if that play button isn't working. But this is just another way to run the Python file. All right, how do I cook the perfect piece of bacon? Because, here at Code Bacon, people want to know. Let's hit enter, see what happens. Now, depending on how much the AI responds to us, like this is probably going to give us a lot of text. So this might take a little bit. Yeah. So, okay, cool. It worked. And yeah, there's a lot. Holy cow. But yeah, let's see. The perfect piece of bacon is subjective. No, it's not. Depending on how crispy. No, we don't want it to be really crispy. We want to be like soft and crispy, right? However, here's a comprehensive guide to achieving bacon perfection. All right, so yeah, we got our response, and response.text is the answer that the AI gives us. So we go through, pretend we read all this, and then the loop is still working. I can ask some more stuff. What is 42? Now, this will be a shorter answer, so it came back a lot quicker. The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. Beautiful. Yes, that is correct. That is correct. More seriously, though, oh, it's such a funny AI. Guys, we're going to be slaves. Like, the AI is going to take over, and it's just scary. So even making this video, I'm like, am I supporting the human takeover of AI? I don't know, but it freaks me out. Anyways, more seriously, 42 is a number, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. But yeah, it's working. So now if I say quit, cool, that worked. And then everything stopped. Anyways, so yeah, there you go, guys. There is an AI chatbot using Google Gemini. I hoped you learned some stuff there. And, you know, this is always kind of fun stuff. But anyways, remember, go destroy the world with code. In a good way, of course. But don't destroy the bacon. We'll see you around. Have a good day.